The Bills beat the Broncos handily 31-7 in the wild card playoff round to advance to the divisional round against the Baltimore Ravens next weekend. We are going to recap this entire playoff win by Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Bills defensive end Greg Rousseau, and you're listening to Nate and the Fellas on Circling the Wagons podcast. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Go Bills!
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo! Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo! The Bills make me wanna shout!
Hey, Bills Mafia, welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo fan base podcast. I am your host, Nate, guys. Thank you so much for joining us as we talk about this Buffalo Bills win against the Denver Broncos 31-7 in the wild card playoff round. We are going to go over our general thoughts of the game, stats of the game, our Sweet Sassy Molassy plays of the game, our wall of fame and wall of shame, and of course, we're going to get some reaction from Bills Mafia and go over all that stuff. So we have all that planned today. But first, I'm joined by my co-host, Mike, this episode. Mike, what's going on, brother?
Hey, a win in the playoffs. It's always a good day, man.
Did you?
With you?
It's good to be here, man. Did you? Was there any bit of you that was a little worried after the first quarter? Because I'll be honest, I started off the first quarter. They went down the field, threw a dime to, what was it, Marvin Mims, Courtney Sutton? I don't even remember at this point. And I was like, I hope this isn't the way this day is going to go. You know, we have so many drought scars, right? So we're used to being let down in times like this. But at the end, it wasn't close at all. Were you worried at all?
Prisoner of the moment, right? Like I get the feeling like the Bills destroyed them. But then like I look back and it was 13-7 with 3 minutes to go in the third. And the Bills were 4th and 1. Right?
Yeah.
Like it was uncomfortably close for 3 quarters.
Good. That's how I felt too. It was just like, I was on pins and needles. Like, like this. I feel like the Bills should be winning by more, but I'll just take a win. I don't care how we get it. Yeah.
No doubt. They turn it on, and all year they've been a second half team, right? Third quarter, they make the adjustments. But yeah, even throughout the third, you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And like, I kind of wanted to, like, what are the odds? You know how we used to see those commercials all the time for like Amazon analytics, like, oh, what are the chances of this catch being like, calculation 3%? Like, what are the odds of that Allen scrambling around? It was like a 25-yard completion and Johnson in the back of the end zone with Allen 10 yards. It was like a 40-yard pass, like true through the air, right? And then the way he caught that. That was insane. Like, what are the odds of that being a completion? So, and absent that, right, the Bills turn it over and a touchdown puts Denver ahead. It's like, absolutely, I'm right there with you. Like, it was uncomfortably close till that play.
That I'm so glad you brought that up. So I'm looking at the next gen stats for that.
You can do that?
Yeah. So
wait, through Amazon?
Yes, through Amazon.
Why aren't you got to share all that stuff? I thought we hadn't, like, you have my HBO.
Oh, I didn't share my Prime password with you.
I didn't know that was. I just figured I'm sharing someone else's Prime account.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then I don't feel so bad.
Well, you can go in and look at the.
No. It's just through Twitter. Like Twitter, Next Gen Stats is like a page on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
So
you were holding out.
No. I'm just looking at it now through their social media page, and so okay. So Josh Allen. His completion probability, what'd you guess, 4%?
Oh, I would say lower. I mean, I was trying to be hyperbolic, I guess, but like, so it's just a snap, like what's being calculated, like him throwing that, like, you know what I mean? Like when the play starts a touchdown, or like how it completely fell apart and then the calculation, because he's looking one way, looking the other way, he's going to run. It's only a 1 yard, and then to throw that ball.
Hold on.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I get what you're saying. Let me share this.
3%
with you. What we're looking at here, I can show everyone that's watching it live with us. This is Josh Allen and the Ty Johnson touchdown. We should time to throw 6.78 seconds. The distance that he actually ran to catch this pass was 67.9 yards, even though the snap of the ball was at the 24-yard line. 67.9 yards. The completion probability was 15.6%. So more than what I thought it was going to be based on that. Again,
but like that's amazing, but then it also doesn't take into account like he's sliding, and then like it would not have been a completion had that foot, like how, like his foot was out of bounds but didn't touch, right?
Yeah.
Like even
I know, how did he
like,
do it?
I totally get what you're saying, but when you factor in like, oh my gosh, that was so close.
I have no idea how they did it so that it wasn't like less than 15.6%, because I agree, like everything that you mentioned, I think it was just like the completion probability. They must be doing it based on how likely this play is to end up as a touchdown or a completion versus, like you said, the knee getting down inbounds and him not having like a toe or a heel touch the out of bounds area, and then like him actually holding the ball because he had to slide to catch it, and him cradling it. And not, I mean, like 3% sounds almost generous when we talk about it out loud, and they said 15.
It'd be funny if this is all just like the completion probability, if it's just like some guy typing like, yeah, 15%.
What are these idiots going to believe? 15.6%. Man, that sounds about right. Yeah. We're watching this video and it's like we count the yards. It's like that's not 67.9 yards he's running. It's only 40. Like, those idiots won't count it. Yeah, interesting, huh?
But it also made like they blew it out in the fourth quarter, like really opened up the game. But if that goes the other way, right? Like Broncos get the ball and a touchdown puts them ahead. Like it's wild to consider because so much is predicated on how exactly that play turned out.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned earlier that you feel like you were like we're prisoners of the moment, and that moment for a long time, like you said, for almost 3/4 of the game was not very convincing. And there were a lot of plays that helped the Buffalo Bills get to that point where they made it, like I'm just thinking out loud, like Denver missed the field goal before halftime, right?
That was huge, right? Just more like from a morale standpoint, like to have the lead instead of like them coming back to tie it right at the end. Because they marched down there to get in field goal range, like nothing.
Oh, yeah. The Bills, again, another long third down, and Cortland Sutton catches it right near that red line where it says, where his field goal range is like, oh, he just catches it and just runs right out of bounds just perfectly. 5 seconds left, just enough time to kick a field goal. Oh,
yeah. And they had a lot of drops too, it seemed like, or Knicks like put the ball on the money, like in their hands.
I know. Do you ever feel like part of this, that one of the reasons why the Bills won today, obviously I think they're a better team. Their seeding was a better team. They had a better record. They didn't have a rookie quarterback. I think a lot of their success today had to do with the fact that they've been there before, right? So they've played enough postseason games to know that even though you're down 13-7 with only a little bit of time left in the third quarter, that the game's not over. Like you still have to put you just have to keep your foot on the gas. So other teams, younger teams, might be like, they got that first touchdown. This is great. We belong here. We're not just, because this whole time leading up to it, I had the feeling that the Broncos were just happy to be there, right? Now, they won't come out and say that, but I had this feeling like, they ended their long playoff drought of, which is crazy. Their like second longest playoff drought was 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, or something like that. So it's funny that it happened like that. At the same time,
I don't know about happy to be there, but I don't think that they felt they were the better team, had more talent. Like a lot would have to go their way for them to win. But because the games are so short, such a small sample size, you never know, right?
You never know.
The best team and the worst team are not separated by all that much in the NFL.
No, and analysts
were playing one game.
Just one game, anything could happen. And that's why a lot of analysts, they weren't necessarily picking the Broncos, but they were saying, I could see this being an upset against the Bills. And I think that's why, because they were a young, hot team and you never know what's going to happen. Like I mentioned, I think they were happy to be there, but they weren't necessarily, a lot of them are younger. They're not prepared for the stuff. It's just like the Bills. Remember when the Bills they broke their drought and they went to play the Jaguars. You went to that game, if I'm not mistaken. And like at first, you're just happy to be in the playoffs. Like this is great, man. I'm just happy I got invited, right? And then at some point, you actually have to perform. It's like, oh wow, like this is huge. And away game against a really good Buffalo Bills team in a hostile environment, that's a lot for an entire younger team, much less a rookie quarterback, to deal with. So I'm not necessarily surprised that the Bills won, but I mean, I kind of expected them to, for all of those reasons that we mentioned, the health, a lot of things leading up to it. So like the Broncos defense, clearly a good defense, great at getting to the quarterback, great at getting pressure on Josh Allen, great at, like stopping offenses, but they haven't played an offense like the Buffalo Bills. And I thought that, I'm glad it showed up. I'm glad that even though it was close for a good portion of the game, that they showed up and it ended up not being so close. So, Mike, here, real quick, I'm going to go into stats of the game in today's win. Let's see. Stats of the game on offense. Josh Allen, 20 for 26, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He also had 8 carries for 46 yards on the ground. James Cook, leading rusher for the Buffalo Bills, 23 carries, 120 yards, 1 touchdown. James Cook was cooking up a stir fry tonight. He was crushing them. Ty Johnson, 9 carries for 44 yards. And leading receiver for the Buffalo Bills today, Mike, if you had to guess off the top of your head, and I love doing this because I feel like it's never completely obvious because of the way that the Bills can beat you with multiple different receivers. They had some long plays. They had some short plays. Josh Allen put up 272 yards. The leading receiver for the Buffalo Bills had 68 yards. Do you know who that is?
Probably Samuel, based on the one play, right?
That is correct. Curtis Samuel. 3 receptions on 3 targets for 68 yards. He had that long 55-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter. But Khalil Shakir was right on his heels. 6 receptions on 6 targets for 61 yards. And then it was Dalton Kincaid had 3 receptions on 3 targets for 47 yards. He had that long 35-yard catch. I think that was in the fourth quarter also. Dawson Knox, 2 receptions.
Dude, that catch, though, what I liked about that, right? Like the Bills knew it looked like a catch until you slow it down. But everybody was on the same page, like, hurry up, get to the line and snap the ball for the next play. So like it was indicative to me of good, like I was very impressed with the coaching, like throughout. A couple penalties with the false starts and stuff like that. But overall, like situationally and making the adjustments, like I liked the coach. Like nothing makes me more insane than right. Like it was so smart of them to such a long pass in a crucial spot to Kincaid. Like they got right up to the line and snapped the ball. Like love to see stuff like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that might be a preview of your Wall of Fame a little bit later on with the coaching staff. But by the way, if you guys are all watching us, if you have anything that you want to add live while we're recording this, including Sweet Sassy Molassie Play the Game, Wall of Fame, Wall of Shame, definitely feel free to get in on the comments, whether you're on Twitter, Facebook, wherever we're streaming this live. Feel free to get in on this as well. So appreciate you guys all tuning in. You're right, Mike. I love the fact that they, as soon as that play, like you said, in real time, it looked like a catch. And then you slowed it down. You're like, oh, that wasn't a catch. But by the time that they stopped that replay, to your point, by the time they stopped that replay on the broadcast, the Bills had already lined up, huddled up to call a play. And not only that, which is funny because like that in itself is an incredible coaching job. But then James Cook ran for 8 yards on that play. Normally that's like a run into a stack of defenders, right? Maybe you get a 1 yard if you're lucky. And he pulls off 8 yards. It was like, oh man, this is the best of all worlds. They got that 35-yard catch and then the 8-yard run. Love it. Ty Johnson, next leading receiver, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 26 yards, 1 touchdown. The 1 touchdown catch that we mentioned, the 24-yard touchdown catch in the back of the end zone, which, may or may not be my Sweet Sassy Molassie Play the Game. We'll talk about that later. Mac Hollins, 1 reception on 2 targets for 19 yards. 1 reception. The way that he was playing today, you would have thought he had more receptions because he had that great tackle on special teams where he just freaking lit up Marvin Mims Jr. to the point where I thought they were going to call a penalty because he hit him so hard, but it was legal, right? Like it was a good hit. And I was like, how is he not waving for the fair catch? Like this guy's you saw it happen in slow motion. That was almost, Mike, like like old school football, right? Like gridiron, like there's no penalties against hitting guys in the head or anything, like severely causing CTE back in those days. Like that was like one of those plays, it felt like. And then Mac Hollins with the one catch where he caught it and then he stood right over the guy. And I was just like, come on, man, what are you doing? I didn't hate it because the Bills won by, but like, and I don't think he would do that if the game was super close, but I was like, come on, man. It was a 19-yard catch, or what was it? Yeah, 19-yard catch. And then he just gave back 15 of it. So like, whatever. I mean, who doesn't like Mac Hollins? I think he's a really easy guy to like on and off the field, but he's got to play smarter than that if the Bills are going to beat the Ravens. I'm not worried about that, but worth noting. And then Keon Coleman, 1 reception on 3 targets for 5 yards. And then Amari Cooper, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 8 yards. I definitely bet the under on this one for Amari Cooper because I didn't think do so well against Patrick Surtain, and he didn't. The Bills defense leading tackler for the Buffalo Bills today was Terrell Bernard, 5 tackles, 1 assist. Matt Milano had a sack today. Greg Rousseau had a sack today. Bills not getting any turnovers today, but then again, they didn't really need to. Tyler Bass was 3 for 3 on field goals today, but they were fairly short. He had a 20-yard field goal, a 27-yard field goal, and a 34-yard field goal. So nothing too crazy, but hey, he hit them all, man. And that's about it. On the Denver side, I'll do real quick. Bo Nix, 13 for 22, 144 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He was also the leading rusher for the Broncos too, 4 carries for 43 yards. Javonte Williams, next leading running back, 7 attempts for 29 yards, 0 touchdowns. Leading receiver for the Broncos, Cortland Sutton, 5 receptions on 9 targets for 15 yards, no touchdowns. Troy Franklin, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 54 yards, had that 1 touchdown, that long 46-yard touchdown on that first drive by the Broncos where you're just like, oh, that stinks. And that's also a guy who's had like really big, he's a rookie. He's had big drop issues this season. Not that play. I was like, of course, as a Bills fan, you're just like, of course, this guy's not going to drop the ball today. Not this time. And that's about it for stats of the game. All right, Mike, time to go into our sweet, sassy molasses.
I would say, just to piggyback off the stats a little bit, like time of possession was ridiculous, right? And then just
for the Buffalo Bills, you mean?
Yeah.
What was it? Do you remember? I'll get it for you, but I just wonder if you knew it off the top of your head.
Get it for me.
Wouldn't that be funny? It's like, it's 33 minutes to 27 minutes, Mike. It's not that bad. No, time of possession was 41 minutes, almost 42 minutes to 18 minutes. So absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. 26 first downs for the Bills to 13 first downs for the Broncos. You know what makes me feel good about this game, Mike, is in looking at that, the Broncos legitimately have one of the best defenses in the entire NFL based on a lot of different metrics, based on statistics. Like they're just a great defensive team. The fact that the Bills could put up 31 points and then sit Josh Allen for half the fourth quarter, like that gives me a lot of hope because the Bills have been able to do that all season for the most part against good defenses, but doing it in the playoffs is another thing, as you know. So I was really encouraged to see that. I think Bills Mafia should be excited about that too, especially going against the Ravens, who have been like really good defensively as of late. They didn't start that way, but now they're really good defensively. I mean, I think that's a good sign for the Bills. I'm glad you brought up time of possession and whatnot. Total yards, it was 471 to 224 for the Bills. Bills third down, 8 for 15. Broncos only 2 for 9.
Yeah, third down was wild. Like at the beginning of the game, right? It seemed like those first couple drives, they'd always go to third down, 3rd and short, and Allen would convert it. Like, geez, you can't overstate the impact that he has on the team. It's incredible.
You know, it's funny that they just named all pros this last week, first team all pro. And obviously Josh Allen didn't get the first team all pro. I'm sure a lot of Bills fans know that by now. I went to Lamar Jackson, and an MVP hasn't not gotten the first team all pro designation since like the 80s or something like that. So it feels like, unless something happens, that Lamar Jackson is going to be the MVP. It's possible. We'll see.
I disagree.
You don't think it's over?
I think it's Allen.
You mean you think that the MVP voters will vote Allen, even though they didn't vote him?
Yes, I think Josh Allen will win the MVP. You disagree? Oh, what are we going to bet?
I think he should. Don't get me wrong.
I don't. Whatever. I'm saying
you think he
will.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Friendly bet. Let's see, Mike. What can I bet with Mike? Let's see if Lamar Jackson wins the MVP. Do you want me to do something, or is this like a monetary bet?
Money, I feel.
You're like, money I don't need. But embarrassment
I feel
live
like
on the podcast would be
money
much better.
More may cause bitter
Yeah,
Nate
conflicts.
to rear
Like, yeah.
his
Oh, Bitter Nate's
ugly head.
Bitter Nate's already reared his ugly head right now. Just the fact that you even mention it, that you would even insinuate. Let's see.
You take me out for a nice dinner.
I'll take you out for a nice dinner. I'll take you out to that garbage plate here or garbage place here in Webster that you keep talking about. You won't shut up about. So I want to. I would have to hear about it. I would love to. I wanted to check it out. So let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want Lamar Jackson, but it just feels like everything's going that way. I mean, I don't know if you saw his.
So we're agreed.
We're agreed. Yes, we're agreed. Okay. Because we can't shake hands personally. So while you're in the comments, everyone, if you're in the comments and you think that, let me know if you think who's going to win the MVP now. Will it be Lamar or Josh Allen? It just feels like did you see the poly market betting? It went up dramatically for Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson is like minus 300 and Josh Allen's like plus 500.
Really?
So, yeah. Yeah, you should have made that bet.
Shit.
It's funny because sometimes I think those things are so dumb, right? I'm like, oh, just like with the
predicted everything. Yeah.
So far, like the election, I was like, oh, everyone was saying it's like 50-50 and Trump was like plus 300. I'm like, that seems like a lot. It seems like it should be more even. A pick 'em, right? Nope. So they've been right so far.
I mean, it'd be so easy for the voters to like get together and like go, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we're going to put our 401ks into.
Oh yeah.
Poly market.
That'd be so smart of them to do that. You imagine like, I could just picture it being, like a new member of like the MVP voting comes in. He's like, hey guys, nice to be here. All right. Yeah. Come to our secret meeting that we're holding. We were all colluding. Anyways. Yeah.
Dude, here's my thought process, right? Like, if it's close, we love Cook, but Henry is just a different beast. And I think that and he was, I think even in the MVP talk earlier in the season, I think that waters down Lamar's candidacy a little bit, having them both on the same team. And then voter fatigue. If Lamar's won 2 already, Michael Jordan should have won NBA MVP every year, and he didn't, because people are like, hey, we've given it to him every year so far. We got to let somebody, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the psychology in my mind. But now you tell me there's a secret cabal of like, I can believe that too, I guess.
The MVP Bilderberg meeting, the Illuminati of the NFL Writers Association. Yeah, they're gonna make sure that Josh doesn't win this one. But no, I agree, dude. I've written over social media like several times about all the stats and all the reasons why Josh should win it over Lamar Jackson, because I feel like some of the biggest arguments for Lamar Jackson are just like, look at the stats. It's like, well, we were told the stats didn't matter last year. It was wins. Wins were a huge factor, and the Bills have more wins than the Ravens. So even though Lamar Jackson finally has better stats than the Buffalo Bills, like now it's a big deal. It's like you said, I'm glad you pointed out the narrative before the season. Not that I planned to get into MVP conversation, but you're the one that brought it up. He was, like you said, the addition of Derrick Henry. No one thought that the Ravens' offense was going to get worse this season, but everyone expected the Bills' offense to get worse, and it's one of the best offenses in the NFL. And they don't have a Derrick Henry, like you said. James Cook is good, but he's no Derrick Henry. They don't have. I don't think they even have the receivers that the Ravens do as well. Like Zay Flowers, I know Zay Flowers is out now. So, but just in general, I don't think that team is built up around Josh Allen as much as it is Lamar Jackson. So there's also a really good stat that I believe it was Mike Florio brought up from the NFL Network, was like the Bills are dealing with, I think like 47 and Romo brought it up on the broadcast, like $50 million in dead cap space this season. So that means that every time the Bills field a team, they're working with like one less or two less like star defensive ends or something like that. Like they're already at a disadvantage every time they walk on the field. And they're doing this. Whereas like every team that the Bills play against have a lot less. And I think the Ravens are like tied for like bottom 5 of least amount of dead cap. So that means that they're like maximizing the roster. Can you blame them for that? No. That's not their fault. It's good roster management. But at the same time, The Bills are doing more with less. That's the point of that conversation. Not specifically just the Bill, or not just the Bills, but specifically Josh Allen. So, Mike, Sweet Sassy Molassie.
What, Nate?
Sweet Sassy Molassie, play of the game. Did I mention it already? Was there something else?
No, there's nothing that's close.
Nothing that's closer than the Ty Johnson 24-yard touchdown catch on 4th and 1 in the third quarter to put the Bills up 21-7. That was like you said, the end of the third quarter too, just barely. I love that play. I mean, you could argue just the Curtis Samuel play was great. That put them up 28-7.
I'll tell you, I wrote down a couple when they happened, and then they always get moved to the bottom as the game progresses. But in the first quarter, it was 7-3, and Milano ran down Nix for the 3-and-out. I'm like, that was awesome. Needed that. It was so early to say it was a game-changing play, but if the Broncos marched right back down and scored a touchdown, like, oh man, it's totally different. And then in that first quarter too, like Dawkins pulling like I think the run ended up being like 16 yards, but it was like 4 yards until Deion Dawkins I've never seen that before. Like there's always pushing and then the guy just falls down.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was pushing and it went another 12 yards.
Yeah.
It felt like. And like just the whole team being on the same page. I thought those really stuck out and were huge to me. And then the third quarter, the no holding call on Kincaid.
Oh, yeah.
I have never seen a ref go over to the quarterback on the bench. It seemed like hat in hand. I don't know.
Dude.
Like, Chiefs fan coming in peace. Like, oh, sorry about that. Like I've never seen that.
So right before we recorded, I'm glad you brought up that play, Mike. Right before we recorded, I just saw the press conference where Josh Allen was asked specifically about that. Like, what did he say?
Yeah.
So this is interesting because what I thought he said was like, sorry, we screwed you on that one. Like that blatant hold, which, by the way, that hold on Kincaid, blatant. Like everyone saw
Terrible.
it.
Yeah.
Terrible. It was very obvious. I mean, Josh Allen could see it from 25 yards away, right? Clear as day. The refs didn't see it. That's fine. Whatever. That's one thing to be upset about. I get it. But if they weren't so damn, readily able to just call a penalty on the Buffalo Bills for holding all the time or whatever, like do it both ways. If you're going to call them all, right? If you're going to let them play, that's fine. But like, don't do this. Like, well, we're going to call this one on Christian Benford. That's obvious. And it was obvious, but not call the other obvious ones against the other team. I don't know. It just feels like week in and week out, the Bills are always playing two opponents. And it's just, it feels like that's not going to change anytime. And
I don't know. I disagree. Like it stings when it goes against you, but sometimes I'm surprised it's calls we get in our favor too. So like, really try not to be right. Like, oh, the refs screwed us.
I don't think they screw us.
Because every fan base says that same thing.
Yeah, but I feel like it's more. There's always I hate when people say that, like such resolute, definite. Like it's always like this.
Dude, yeah.
You never take out the dishes, or you
feel
never
like
take out the
we're
trash.
talking to our fathers.
Talking to our fathers. So I want to say, like, let's say there's
a
caveat.
Yeah.
Like, let's say there's 6 poorly called plays each game. I want to see at least 4 or 5 of them. It feels like are against the Bills each week. It's never usually 3-3 or 2-4 where the Bills the Bills got the majority of it. I feel like that rarely happens. So anyway, but
maybe the Bills are actually doing it more.
So what what the ref actually said to him was, you can't yell at us like that. Like you can't. He came over and be like, dude, you got to freaking, calm it down. You cannot yell at referees like that. So it wasn't so much like, hey, that play, yeah, you're right, maybe it should have been called. It was nothing like that. Like that guy was just like, you can't yell at us like that, man. All right, something bad's gonna happen. It reminds me of basketball when Squeak's like, dude, I swear to God, you guys make fun of me 13 or 14 more times and I'm out. But no, he was basically just giving them the like, hey, and some fans in the NFL would probably see that as the Bills getting preferential treatment. Like they might throw the flag against a Bo Nix for yelling at the refs, which is that's a fair assessment. It might be like that, even though it was completely obvious that it was holding in the end zone. I mean, he basically pulled him down. So anyway, All those plays were really good. Sweet Sassy Molassie plays of the game. Honorable mentions, obviously. We mentioned the big one. Mike, I'm so happy you brought up the Matt Milano first quarter sack. The Bills were down 3-7, and the Bills didn't look great offensively, and the Broncos were looking good offensively. Taron Johnson just got injured on the play beforehand. So you're like, shoot. It just felt like an avalanche of what else can go wrong for this team, right? They're already losing against a team they should beat, and now they're losing their star cornerback, if not one of the best players on their defense, and Taron Johnson. You're just like, this looks like he's down with a head injury. It's maybe a concussion, at least. Best case scenario, it's a concussion. Like this sucks. And then Matt Milano stopping. Matt Milano, who's been injured all season, is now in his 30s, like ran down Bo Nix like he was right out of college, right? Like he looked great on that play, and he saved them. And that play led to, like you said, the punt to force a fourth down. The Bills punted, right? Or the Broncos punted to the Bills, and the Bills got their touchdown, didn't look back, right? Like that was the Gettysburg play of the game. In my opinion, that's when the game truly changed. You mentioned a lot of good plays. Denver.
Another thing I liked is like they gave up the fake punt, right? Which was unfortunate. But then it seemed like it galvanized the defense, and they came right back out and stopped them right over again. So like that went from, hey, awesome play call, gutsy, we're going to steal the momentum back. Like, oh, even when things go perfectly right for us, it doesn't even matter. The Bills came right out and stopped them.
Yeah.
So I loved how that momentum meter just shifted so decisively when they could not capitalize on that.
For sure. For a Bills defense that's taken its lumps this season, that was great. The ability for them to like reclaim themselves. And
my only disappointment there, I would say, is like the defensive line. Like you watch some of these other games, and it's like they're getting at the quarterback constantly with the pressures, the hurries, like, and you're like, oh, maybe Von Miller is going to wake up to play the Broncos, but no,
he didn't.
He just runs by.
So this is interesting, Mike.
Like
I agree.
It'd be so dynamic.
Imagine if they had an actual pass rusher on there,
Yeah.
like consistently good pass rusher. Agreed, 100%. And I actually was going to put the Bills pass rush on my wall of shame later, but listen to this stat. According to Next Gen Stats, Bo Nix was pressured on 14 of his 27 dropbacks. The Bills' pressure rate of 51.9% was the highest he's seen all season. So it didn't look like that, though. It looked like he had plenty of time, each play, not each play, but a majority of them. But here it says that he was pressured for most of the game.
That's just a guy in a room typing things, man.
Dude, can we make it an inside joke with only the listeners and the streamers that I just make up stats of like the Bills on Twitter?
You could create a Twitter account. Yeah, Next Gen Stats.
I'm just going to like do it from our CTW account and just rattle off stuff that's not completely real. Did you see how that one, we already talked about this a few weeks ago, that one Aaron Rodgers brought up this stat that was completely made up on Twitter? Yeah. So that stuff would just catch like wildfire. Like Von Miller was, held on, 60% of his plays, and people would be like, yeah, well, you can't say 60% because people will catch on and be like 61.8%, right?
Yeah,
that sounds real. I'll just,
if you really want to do your homework, just see how many snaps he took, right? And actually, so if anybody did the division, if he played X snaps, about 3/4 he was held, and divide it out, and there you go.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to check beyond that.
Don't give the percentage of snaps. Give the actual amount of snaps, right?
Like do the homework.
Do the homework.
How much was he on the field, and then just make it up.
Yeah, I should do that right now. See how well that goes. See how much it takes off.
Dude, it's who's going to retweet it? Von Miller.
Why wouldn't he? Like that's what I'm talking about. No, it's not me. It's the holding. It's the holding that's the thing. That's why I'm not getting as many sacks. So my Gettysburg of the game, the turning point of the game for the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, was Milano, like you said, getting that stop in the first quarter, which is crazy to think a play in the first quarter. And then, an honorable mention for the Gettysburg of the game would be the missed field goal before halftime that we talked about. That Denver fake punt play was, in my opinion, inexcusable for the Buffalo Bills to have happened to them. I know Tony Romo said it's a great play call because they waited until the corner turned his back on Marvin Mims. But at the same time, why isn't Jamarcus Ingram being coached that like, hey, always be ready for a fake punt. like there's certain things that like they should be ready for, right? Especially against the Sean Payton. Sean Payton had to start the second half of that Saints Colts Super Bowl a decade or two ago. He started off the second half with an onside kick. Why wouldn't you think that he would do this, especially in a game he's losing? This just boggles my mind that they weren't ready for that. Be like, hey, by the way, but the way that the rules are right now, you can't do an onside kick. You know what you can do though? Fake punt, fake field goal. Be ready for all those. We're going to get into Wall of Shame later. Let's go into Wall of Fame. Let's start with that one. Mike, who do you have on your Wall of Fame?
The MVP of the league, Josh Allen, and the coaching staff I was very impressed with. Like we've run out of superlatives. It starts and ends with Allen. Like it's never been more evident in the NFL. Like you need a quarterback to win. It sounds ridiculous to say, right? But like somebody, like every team left has a great quarterback and one that's mobile. And like you could make the case that it's Allen and Lamar and Mahomes, right? And it's amazing time to be a Bills fan to have, like, it was just so evident on third and shorts, fourth down, like it just takes over the game, and the Bills would be completely lost without him, I think. And that, so like the short plays, you're like, you just believe like, oh, he's going to get it. And then like the 4th and 1, like the long passes too, like he's full, can do it all, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. At this point, it's hard to just describe how well Allen is playing, how much he's not pushing the ball down the field unless he needs to, how he's being patient, how he's not. I think earlier in his career, especially his postseason career, he would get like flustered very easily. Like he's a very emotional guy. Like you could tell, and not in a bad way, you could tell the emotion on his face when he threw that pass to Ray Davis. And Ray Davis ended up getting a concussion, get knocked out of the game. You could see the look on Allen's face of just like, not just disappointment that he didn't catch the ball or anything, but that he put that ball out there and he let one of his receivers, his running back this time, get hit like that. And he felt personally responsible, right? Like he's an emotional guy, which is not a bad thing. But I think in previous seasons, that would have potentially changed the way that he played the game the rest of the game. Or like if the Bills were down like they were early in the game, Josh Allen would have pressed much harder as opposed to let's slow it down. There's plenty of time left, plenty of possessions left. Let's keep it going. The game's not won and lost in the first quarter, right? I think that's how Josh plays now, which is huge. But this, we're seeing the evolution of Josh Allen before our eyes, and it's great to see. So Wall of Fame, obviously Josh Allen. I like it. Do you have any honorable mentions before I give a couple of mine? Or
I was very impressed with the coaching and how they kept their foot on the gas like late in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
not just becoming one-dimensional and running.
Agreed. That's another evolution, I feel like, of coaching. Like you mentioned, the Bills coaching staff, it hasn't always been like that, right? How many times have they gone into prevent defense or just run the ball? And even though this is the best the team has ever been able to run the ball, they didn't just do that at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, right? Just to run off clock. I mean, they did some of it, but it wasn't just that, right? I love that you said that. The Bills were averaging, James Cook was averaging 5.2 yards per carry today. So I think James Cook deserves an honorable mention for the game that he had. Incredible game. I like that the Bills were able to run the ball and they didn't stop running the ball, because we've seen past Bills teams, when they get some success running the ball, they're like, oh, well, now we have to pass it because they know we can run it. It's like, no, just keep doing it until you can't do it, until it's not successful. And they did both well today. They passed and they ran the ball today, but they used the run to set up the pass. And I think they did a great job. I'm going to give an honorable mention to the Bills defense today, only allowing 7 points against, a good young quarterback and an offense that's not bad by any stretch. I mean, they do have an all-pro on their they have a couple of all-pros on their offensive side of the ball. So I think that they're a good offense. They're not great. They're not the best we've seen, but to only allow 7 points the entire game, think about it, Mike, after that first drive, they basically shut them out the entire game for the rest of it. I think the defense.
Have you been with Dale Carnegie or something? My name is every other word.
Wait. Do you like when I do that?
I don't hate it.
That it's working too. Mike, the thing is, Mike, what I like that you did, Mike, earlier was, so I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah. Honorable mention to the Bills defense, to Curtis Samuel for showing up, today just randomly. I love that. Let's go into Wall of Shame. I'll go first this time, Mike. I'll give you let you have a breather. I'm first and foremost, I think it goes to Matthew Smiley, the special teams coach. Again, I mentioned the fake punt that was converted by the Broncos. You can't let that happen. And it happens consistently, I feel like, for the Bills. Sure, did they have a great play on special teams? Mac Hollins had that huge tackle. It could have easily been a fumble against Marvin Mims, an all-pro, kick returner. I thought that was a great play. It was just, I don't know. There's just time after time, I feel like these are big mistakes that could hurt them with a much closer game. Think about the Rams game, right? The blocked punt all of a sudden, right? I mean, some of that's execution, clearly. Some of that's coaching. I've just been very, very underwhelmed by Matthew Smiley as the coach. And I don't like calling for people to get fired because I'm always reluctant to do that. I was never fire Sean McDermott. I was always like, let's see how things go. But I'm just worried going into the postseason when things get really tight, especially against the Ravens, the Chiefs, and whoever in the NFC, that this could be a game deciding play, a special teams play. And that's not what you want. Honorable mention so Mike, who's on your wall of shame in this one?
Just defensive line that always sticks out to me. I know you said they're whatever fake stat you said, but I'd like to see a sack fumble, something.
Yeah, agreed. And those pressure, that fake number that I gave you earlier for 51.8% pressure on all of his dropbacks, that could have also had to do with like corner blitzes, right? Or linebacker blitzes, because they weren't able to get any pressure with just rushing 4, right? Agreed. Defensive line deserves an honorable mention for wall of shame. Christian Benford, I thought, actually, for once, didn't have a great game. Not enough to give him the wall of shame, but an honorable mention. Not great for him. But, he had that holding penalty. He had some coverage issues that we're not used to seeing from him against Cortland Sutton. Makes me think of that long reception before the end of the half was against him. Anyway, I'm going to give an honorable mention to the refs. You mentioned that Miss Kincaid end zone holding call. There was a few other calls. Can't think of it off the top of my head. Penalties, of course. The Bills just taking penalties in general. They took more than I thought they would. Real quick, the Bills took how many penalties? They don't have. Oh yeah, 7 for 45. It's not terrible, but not compared to the Broncos. Only 3 penalties, right? And this is a big one. Actually, I should put this higher up on the list. This is my last wall of shame. And again, the Bills won, so I'm not saying these are terrible things, but small criticism is the Bills' red zone efficiency. They were only 1 for 5 today on red zone efficiency. Not great. But then again, the Broncos have a good defense, so you could justify it. You can justify anything, Mike. It's just anything you want to, but that was disappointing. I think I expected a little bit more from Josh and the Bills' offense. Again, they scored 31 points. Only 1 was actually in the red zone. So, yeah. So, Mike, I'm going to share my Twitter screen with you guys after every game. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do. We're at CTW Pod, like Circling the Wagons Pod. We're on that. We're like that on all platforms, by the way, whether you're Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. We're at CTW Pod. And after every game, I say, what's your hot take for this win or loss? And let's get some feedback from, by the way, if you're in the comment section and you want to get in on this, whether, we have a few thousand people now watching. If you want to get your comment in, definitely feel free to. First one I'm going to read, George Lucas. I didn't know he was a Bills fan. The Bills and Ravens are the best 2 teams in the AFC. Next week's winner is going to the Super Bowl. That is a good take. It's a hot take. They're basically saying you can just go right through the Ravens. I like it. Swank 24/7 Buff Fandemonium on the Buffalo Fan Base Network. Swank says the defense has figured it out, and this is possibly the best Bills offense we've ever seen. I love that take. I love that take that the Bills defense is figuring it out at the best time of the year when it really matters. Let's see how they do against the Ravens next week, because that offense is on fire. So we'll see what they can do. But again, they look good this week. Big Mike says, hot take, this Bills win is not as impressive as some may think. I'll take for sure. But the real test is next weekend. Agree? Sure, a good playoff team. The Bills have beaten good playoff teams this season. But yeah, next week is definitely the ultimate test. B Mormon 2020 says, team win, rushing game up. Is the D-line good? ? I don't really understand. Mike, that sounds like your burner, B Mormon 2020. Mike, if you were to end the season right now and we were looking into the offseason, biggest list of needs on the team, position wise, you'd have to say is either defensive end or defensive tackle, someone that can get pressure, right? Like without a doubt, it's got to be somebody that can pressure the quarterback, no matter what position, just somebody on the defensive line that can get to the quarterback.
For sure.
I agree. If they like, so they have good pass rushers. I think Greg Rousseau is good, not great. I think he's really, really good at stopping the run. He had some really good plays, defending the run, but he's not an elite pass rusher right now. He's good. I think the Bills are missing that. If they had this, I feel like that's the one piece they're missing besides like maybe a number one wide receiver, Jamar Chase, but it feels like they don't need that. They're missing a stud pass rusher on the defensive line. Big R says Wall of Fame, Cook, Josh Allen, O-line, Curtis Samuel, and the defense. Wall of Shame, refs for refusing to call hold on Denver, and the people who picked the Jets and Dolphins to win the AFC East. It's a good one. Sweet Sassy Molassie or the Gettysburg, the 4th and 1 YOLO Ty Johnson touchdown. YOLO Ty, I love it. 4th and 1. By the way, Mike, you said coaching deserves, Wall of Shame or Wall of Fame consideration, and them going for that on 4th and 1 when the game was where it was. I could easily see a younger Sean McDermott saying, I'm just going to take the field goal, right? I love that he was aggressive on it and it paid off.
Jeez, and the way that play developed, I would have taken the field goal at any point up until even after the catch, right? And you're like, I don't know. I think so, but you could easily see it being overturned.
It's
right at any point during that, you might have been like, I will take the 3.
It's like a bet you make on like a betting app, right? And like halfway through, like it's looking okay, but it's not looking good. And it's just like, do you want to cash out for $3 out of the $50 you bet you made? It's like, man, maybe I should. Maybe I should kick that field goal. Nashville says pass the ball more. It's your hot take, pass the ball more. Maybe. I don't know. They ran the ball really well. Koala Bear Khan says hot take, whichever team wins this game will win the Super Bowl. I love it. I think that's very possible. Andrew, I say that, but then the Chiefs beat the Ravens at the beginning of the season. So I don't know. I feel like, we mentioned Josh Allen not getting the MVP, potential disrespect for the Buffalo Bills, 0 first-team All-Pros for a team that went 13-4, had the second seed in the AFC, 0 first-team All-Pros. Disrespected for sure. Doesn't it feel like the Chiefs are kind of being disrespected? You mentioned, Mike, how people were just kind of sick of voting for Michael Jordan for MVP. Don't you feel like everyone's kind of just stopped talking about the Chiefs, like they're not really that big of a deal? Like they're very much a big deal. I feel like they just don't get as much national attention as they really should.
I disagree. I just think it's because of the bye.
Because of the wild card week,
okay. Right? Taylor Swift, cultural phenomenon. Like every kid you see walking down the street has them. Every kid, it's either Steph Curry, Ronaldo, Messi, or Mahomes. Front runners, man. Those kids. For football, it seems like every other jersey is Mahomes. Like I don't think the Chiefs. It's just it's partly a function of the bye, and they were not dominant this year. But they only lost one close game. But every game was close. So it doesn't feel like an inevitability like sometimes it does with the teams that are completely stacked, right? Like number one and then everybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could just be recency of the fact that they didn't play this week. Andrew Freeman says Ty Johnson touchdown is a sweet sassy molassie play of the year. Ooh, play of the year. Man, that's we're not going to go into it, but I have a few plays that would probably rival that. But yeah, that's a good one. It's top 5, top 10 for sure. If he even has a foot down, this is a totally different game. That's a good point, Mike. So that was the play that the Bills went up 21-7. If they don't convert that fourth down, then all of a sudden, the Broncos get the ball back at their own 24-yard line, right? So it is a considerable swing. Maybe the momentum goes back there. That could be the Gettysburg of the game if you look at it from that standpoint. Charles Byrne says, hot take was a defense. Wasn't pretty or spectacular, but they held Denver to 7 points. Wall of Fame, Josh Allen's matured and was not forcing the ball in. Wall of Shame, the refs who failed to call blatant holding calls on Denver right in front of them. And the Gettysburg was a Samuel touchdown. Anakin Skywalker says, prayers up for Ray Davis. Curb stomp today. Enough said. The line of scrimmage will determine next week. We have to hit Henry in the backfield before he gets rolling. He's the absolute X factor. Same sentence. If we can get the push up front and run the clock, we're in business. Defend our dirt. I love it. I love it. Matthew David said need better first halves on offense, potentially. Anthony says offense left a lot of points on the field, including self-inflicting penalties. We were too much. Also, refs were a bit blind on several plays that could have been called and shouldn't have been called. Absolutely. Jason Statham says, hot take, in order to beat the Ravens, we need to get sacks early. Make Lamar play behind the stick all first half. We can take care of the rest in the second half. Mike, someone brought this up on social media to Jason's point where it was like, in order to beat the Ravens, unlike the Steelers yesterday, you have to – Lamar Jackson is so good when he's got the ball in for a read option where he can either keep the ball or give it to the running back, right? Like it's basically he'll give it to the running back and then snatch it back out of his hands when he sees something happening, right? Like he's so quick. He's so good at that. Someone was mentioning last night on Twitter during that game was like, this is what you do to stop that. You always go after the running back. And that way, let Lamar tire himself out and run and take a few hits because he'll take, there were some hits that he took last night where it looked like he was not going to get up from. And he did. So, let him take the hits. He's like, and let him beat you either as a runner or throwing the ball. Don't let Derrick Henry beat you. Whatever you do, sell out to stop Derrick Henry. And it's like, that might be the way they go, man. Maybe Derrick Henry only has 60 yards rushing, but they limit Lamar. Or they let Lamar make him beat you. Chad Labrie says, dominant performance on both sides of the ball by the Bills after the first score by the Broncos. Wall of Fame, James Cook. Wall of Shame, Broncos fans wanting Buffalo. I love that Chad brought that up. Did you see that clip, Mike, where when they got to they're like, we want Buffalo. Do.
Dude, we would do the same thing. It would be the only team you play. You just want to make the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. You just want the playoffs, right? It's not so much that they wanted the Bills because they thought they could beat us. It was
that's who you'd be playing if you snuck in.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny. It reminds me of that gladiator thing at the very beginning where he's, where they're fighting the Roman forces are fighting that very, they have like the Romans have all these very intricate technological weapons against the savages. I guess you could call them the German savages or whatever. And then Maximus goes to his leading general or his leading sergeant or colonel or whatever. It's just like, people should know, or the guy says to Maximus, like, people should know when they're conquered, right? Like and then Maximus says, would you, Quintus? Would I? It's just like, you can't blame them for wanting to be in, but it was just funny that they wanted us. It's like, well, you got us. I was trying to think of a good movie clip for a meme or a TV show clip for a meme of a guy that like really wanted to fight or really wanted to do something and then just like gets his butt handed to him, right? Just think of a movie quote like that where someone's like, all right, come on, let's do this, and then just gets the snot kicked out of him. You know what I'm thinking of actually? Now that I'm saying it out loud, did you ever see Naked Gun?
It's been a while.
So I own all 3 Naked Gun movies. And in the third one, they finally catch this guy who's like a dirty crook, right? And this old cop that's like Leslie Nielsen's best friend, he's like, no. He's like, I want a piece of this guy. They're like about to carry him out. They're like, no, let him go. I want a piece. He's taking off his like rings, his watches, and he's like rolling up his sleeves. He's like, come on, I want to. And he just walks up to you, hear, like he's like punches landing. They're like, all right, that's enough. Let him up. And then you see him and the cops on the ground just face down. And the criminal is just like, boxing over him. It's just like, all right, let him. He's had enough, guys. So I found my meme for later tonight at midnight when I'm putting it. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to talk about things out loud, man.
That's perfect.
All right, a couple more before we end this one. Richard W. Griswold, total domination, 210 yards rushing, led by Cook. Johnson and Allard were huge. Rushing defense came to play, going to need an even larger effort next week. Broncos good, but 2 years away. Bills 0 games away. Absolutely. Let's see. Bill Lasso says there are some players on this roster. I think people treat us like Josh does everything, but that just isn't true. Cook had an amazing day running. Ty Johnson had a great catch, and Samuel's run was awesome. I love Josh, but he's not the only awesome player we have. Go Bills, baby. I love that point too. Ty Johnson is my favorite. I wrote this on Twitter. My favorite non-Bill starter, Ty Johnson. And some people had some other good ones like Alec Anderson. There's 6 offensive linemen. I love Alec Anderson. He's always playing well. He's always talking some major trash whenever he's out there though too. He's always pissing guys off. But great player. AJ Tharp. I think we'll leave it on this one. AJ Tharp says, hot take, the curse of OJ died when he did, and we start our Super Bowl run by defeating his most prized namesake, his Bronco. We'll go through Lamar, we'll go through Mahomes, and we'll bring that Lombardi to Buffalo. I love that. AJ, absolutely. I'm going to retweet with that. That one was so good, I'm going to retweet it. AJ's good. If there's a way to sort Twitter so I can put him at the bottom to conclude our podcast, always crushing it. AJ, thank you guys all for listening. Thank you for being a part of this show. Thank you for viewing. If you're viewing this live or later, when I post this later, thank you guys all for being a part of it. Mike, the Ravens next week, any final thoughts? Do you know what the line on that one is, by the way?
Bills are favored by 1.5.
1.5 at home. Okay. All right. You sure about that?
What do you got?
I think so. I haven't told you this. So we have a DraftKings account together that we bet on. I usually make like one bet a week on the Bills. I used to tell you about them, but you never responded. So I just keep doing them now. And oh, by the way, so we make money almost every week because I do a teaser. I do a 6-point teaser. So like this week I bet the under. So like the over under was 7 or 48 and I bet the under. So I teased it up to 54 and I bet the under. So we won that one. And then I bet the Bills to win by at least 1.5 points, which they clearly did. So if I was betting this one,
I feel like it might be one of those times you only tell me the wins.
Like today was a win, Mike. Isn't that great? I think we still have money left in the account. So should I be telling you this? Do you feel bad that I'm not including you in on it? I used to, and you didn't respond. So I'm like, oh, he must not care if I just go off on my own. If I say his name enough on the podcast, he'll overlook. So if you were to bet this one, which one would you go? Which way would you go?
I'm taking the Bills, but I'm not. There's a decrease in confidence compared to the Broncos, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm
taking the Broncos and giving 7.5 instead of the Ravens and 1.5, right?
Yeah. What's the over under on that game? It's got to be more than 46 or whatever. It's probably, I guess it's like 48 or 49.
I've never bet an over under, have I? I guess not to my knowledge, but maybe I have been.
You hate the over under specifically. You told me that. Do you have that pulled up?
You better do it. I don't know how to.
Well, I have this mask on. It won't let me do the code, and I ain't taking it off. So, yeah,
51.5. Sorry,
51.5. So this is what I would do. I do a 6-point teaser like I normally do for these. I would bet the Bills. So then a 6-point teaser would give them 5. Would be the Ravens plus 4.5. Yes. The Ravens plus 4.5, and I would bet the over. So that would put it down to 45.5, the over. So that's what I would do. I'd bet the Bills on that one. But yeah, I'd take the teaser. I don't mind betting it straight up if I like it, but I don't like that one. So that way, if you bet the way I do, you still win if the Ravens win by 4 points or less. And if the Bills win it all or the Ravens win by 4 points or less, you win. So win. All right.
Winning.
I like it. Winning's honestly the best. Is there anything better than winning?
Gambling with somebody else's money?
That's a close second. I'd say, oh, you know what? That is better. Losing and not having anyone find out that you lost their money. I mean, it's almost like there's no consequences, to be honest. So
I wonder if it's linked to my bank account.
You've also
it's like, why am I scraping by? I don't go out. I don't buy anything.
That'd be funny. Like, not only am I using your account to make bets, frivolous bets, but I'm also depositing money out of your bank account into the betting account. Like, why am I screaming by? I thought I had a lot more money. Just 200. All of a sudden it's going. It's not even like a DraftKings or like a reputable site. It's one of those sites that has like a dry cleaner as like the charge. Why am I spending all this money on dry cleaning? I don't get it. I can't call it because it's like some out of the country number. Man, well, this was a fun conversation. Thank you guys all for joining. Thanks to Mike, obviously, for being the co-host on this one. It was always fun to talk Bills with you guys, with Mike, with everyone. Bills are looking great. They're hitting their stride. Again, I think this is going to be a completely different game. I understand everyone's worried about the Ravens because they beat the Bills the worst of any team this entire season. But
it hinged on a couple plays
and injuries. The Bills did not have Matt Milano that game. They did not have Terrell Bernard, I believe, that game. I think they were they had Khalil Shakir was basically fully injured. I think he played a few snaps. But yeah, they lost. The Bills' health so far, knock on wood, is the best it's been in any postseason game. We just you keep that health, man. And I think the Bills get to the Super Bowl. It's just a matter of staying healthy, in my opinion. So thank you guys all for listening. Thank you for being a part of it. Please like, comment, subscribe on all the platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever the hell else I didn't think about. Instagram, follow us there at CTW Pod. I'm going to put together that Naked Gun 33 1/3 clip tonight as I'm laying in bed and where I should be sleeping instead of being on social media. Trying to get that last hit of dopamine before I go to bed. Get that last hit of blue screen before I close my eyes. Thank you guys all for listening. Signing off for Mike.
Go Bills.
And for me, Nate, go Bills. It was a fun time talking to you, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Can you inject dopamine somehow?
How is that not illegal?
Thing, right?
Yeah.
Is it just like some blind spot in knowledge that nobody's ever thought of?
Are you the first person to ever think about making a synthetic dopamine?
I do synthetic oxy. I do know that. Those people got ridiculously rich.
Man, there's got to be a way to do that.
We just make ours non-addictive or not harmful. Yeah. You can do addictive, just not harmful.
Yeah. Addiction is fine. It's whatever.
Yeah,
it's just
like everything's addiction.
Yeah. I mean, caffeine.
Like petting your dog you're addicted to that.
I'm so addicted to petting my dog. I'm addicted to drinking coffee. Pizza. Oh yeah. Candy. Yeah.
People get addicted to working out, right? But, you get addicted to anything. It has such a negative connotation when it shouldn't.
I mean, there are some bad things to get addicted
to.
Sometimes getting addicted to pizza and stuff is not the best of all the things.
It's not bad. You got to live a little. I was thinking more like hard drugs.
Yeah, for sure. For hard drugs. How is there not but that's a great point about this. We're going to talk offline about this. I'm going to do some research about this and see if there's a way to get dopamine. It's just like people drink coffee. You know, you ever think about that in the future of all of the things that, like when people were smoking nonstop for hundreds of years and then they realized finally it causes cancer, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was like nobody before that was like, I wonder if this is bad what I'm inhaling into my burning, inhaling into my lungs for, 60 years. Like this is probably fine. This isn't going to hurt me. Right. They never thought about that. What's going to be the thing that causes cancer or ends up hurting people in the future that we're just like, oh, that's fine. Like drinking
probably
coffee.
Wearing these. Well, I was going to say like fake wrestling masks that you shipped over from
China. I had to get it before the tariffs went up, man. Get this. But yeah, there's definitely lead in this mask. Can't see it, but this mask did come with like this plastic mesh netting around. So I took it off so I could actually see through it. So like it makes sense when you're wrestling, but not when you're trying to see the screen in front of you.
Yeah.
But I definitely didn't trim it that well. And there's some like pieces. So if you ever see me doing this on the podcast, because there's a plastic part of a screen, stabbing me in the eyeball as we're doing our podcast. So yeah.
Dude, speaking of wrestling, I tuned into I saw a tiny bit of that Netflix.
Oh, how was that?
Dude, I never watched wrestling before, but like I'm used to like real sports where people are like trying. Like, and wrestling is fake, like they're amazing athletes, whatever, but the decision is made in advance, like who's going to win. But I had no idea. They just stand around, like you'll beat the shit out of somebody and they just like stand around waiting for them to like totally heal and rejuvenate to then come attack you. Like it's so over the top.
Oh, really? Even still?
Yeah. And then like I don't understand the rules. It's like one guy's totally beating up the other guy, right? And then like four of his friends can just run out. Like what? It'd be like football if you're playing 11 on 11, and then just 6 other guys run out for the other team. Like, oh, that's totally fine.
Oh, it's the bench clearing play.
Bizarre.
I didn't know that they were going to do that play. Yeah. No, I guess you're not really selling it for me. I guess I feel like I don't really need to watch it.
Terrible.
Okay. All right.
Unless you can explain it to me. I feel like you knew a little like back in the day.
So I've watched the Mr. McMahon documentary, or almost done with it. and I used to watch wrestling a lot as a kid, but I couldn't tell you now how much they stood around. It felt like they didn't. It felt like it was constant action.
Really?
It felt like it was, but I'm sure there a lot of it was like that. So that's funny.
That's all, man.
That's all.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod @gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons.